What's up? I'm Shamik Lamore, and you're listening to More Than Music, a podcast where we discuss all things rap from a rapper's perspective. Today's episode is titled Where the Queer Rappers At, because we're going to take a gaze into sexuality discrimination in hip-hop. Ask a rap fan for 10 queer artists off the top of their head, and they'll likely laugh, treating the idea of a queer rapper as a joke. Now, beyond stars like Lil Nas X, Young M.A., or Saucy Santana, LGBTQ rappers are often gay-kept or sidelined. There is also a clear double standard. Lesbian artists are often tolerated through a lens of sexualization, while gay men are demonized. However, under that same logic, if a black lesbian were to explicitly, state a lack of attraction towards men, whether or not that be through rap or through a simple post online, the vitriol on social media in response to that is immediate. And if you're looking for an example of this, you can look on Doechie's social media. When she came out as a person who is a woman who only likes women, the response was crazy. And that was in part because the male fan base that she unfortunately had acquired, they sexualized her to the point where they could not accept the idea of Doechii not wanting them, even though they never really had a chance with Doechii in the first place. Now, that bias is rooted in deep-seated homophobia and the remnants of patriarchal post-slavery dynamics in black communities. While not all black cishet men subscribe to this, the rap industry remains dominated by black cishet men who view women loving women as a fantasy, but men loving men as a threat. Ultimately, who you love doesn't affect your talent, but in hip-hop, it still dictates your visibility. I was in a group chat in preparation for a song war, which was going to be live streamed. And in this group chat, not only were the artists so unprofessional, which is, a common trope within the rap community, but they were also freely, with no restriction by the host, using slurs, homophobic statements, sexual assault jokes, things that just were not funny. And those things happen on live stream and in chat. But I'm going to read an excerpt from the chat to give an understanding of how what queer rappers have to go through. The random questions that we get that don't matter, it's just how can queer rappers flourish if the communities that they need to involve themselves in to grow refuse to stop being prejudiced toward them? I am an underground rapper. I cannot avoid song wars because someone called me the F-slur. That's not something that I have the luxury of doing if I want to get to a certain level. Now, this is how it went. A discussion began where each artist was listing their preferred taste in women. And I mean, this conversation had absolutely nothing to do with the song war. But thinking nothing of it, just wanting to include myself in the conversation, obviously, it's a group chat, I proceeded to describe, my type. While I was explaining, an artist randomly proceeds to ask, "So do you only like girls?" I responded saying, "Yes, sir." He responded, "So you've never and I'm reading this verbatim. I'm quoting him, so excuse the grammar. "So you never had a crush on no man before?" Now, at this point, I wasn't sure why he wanted to know this information, since it literally did not matter at all. So I responded with, why are you asking me weird stuff? Just vibe, twin. Which basically means let's just move on from the topic. He responds with, "'Cause I don't understand it. Sorry to tell you I don't. I come from a Christian family, big on only men and women type stuff, so it ain't nothing against you. Just every time I talk to someone of a different lifestyle, I have to ask, was there ever a point where you did like men?" Now, one pattern I consistently see in homophobic black men is that they will always say that they don't hate gay people and they have nothing against us per se, but then proceed to say the most misogynistically charged homophobic dog whistle that immediately screams, "I don't like gay people, but I don't want to be viewed as a bigot." Now, I didn't respond to him at first, you know what I mean? It was late at night, but he continued typing in the chat saying, "I hate to sound like that guy," but, he really used the N-word. I just didn't want to put it, but he was like, I hate to sound like that guy, bro, but I really feel like it's a choice." Now, after some small back and forth, he proceeds to mention that he has a sister who identifies almost the exact same way I do. So I pondered to him, "What did your sister say when you asked her these questions?" He says, "Her answer was like when she was a little girl and she tried to do all the little girly stuff to be like the other girls, but she never really could though. She was always more like the guys and she really never found herself attracted to no male. It was always she was attracted to females. That's what she told me. So essentially, it's not that he doesn't understand why or how someone is LGBTQ. He simply just doesn't agree with the reasoning we give to explain it. Now, this conversation was later brought up on a stream called Song Wars Beef, where anyone who had been going back and forth or arguing in any manner in the Song Wars group chat would be able to address it. Not only was I called the slur multiple times, but sexual assault jokes, like I said previously, were made. And it was just honestly one of the worst experiences I've ever had. Now, as I said previously, all men are not like this. There were 2 to 3 plus men in the chat who were denouncing the behavior, reiterating that sexual assault and slurs are no joking matter. But it doesn't change that being in spaces like this can completely discourage LGBTQ artists from ever wanting to step foot in the scene to display their talent. And not to mention, there were women who literally did not want to come back into the group chat simply because of how people were discussing things, like simply how arguments were going. Anytime a female rapper wanted to say something or disagree with what was being said, there were just misogynistic statements being made. And honestly, I don't blame them for not wanting to follow through with the song war. Now, that's just one aspect of, being queer in a rapper. That's just one aspect of it. The physical or the in real life, I should say, encounters of a person being homophobic to you. Now, there's also just the systemic level of it. The idea that an artist simply being gay could be the end-all be-all to their career. Now, most of the people around my age have heard of the phrase, got the club going up on a Tuesday.
Club going up on a Tuesday.
But do you know the history behind the downfall of the artist who made that song? And for those who don't know, the artist who made the song is called I Love Makonnen. Now, after coming out on Twitter, which I will say is one of the worst places to come out, but he came out on Twitter January 20th, 2017. He called it old news to break. Now, the reaction was mixed. It featured a loud hush hush, from the hip hop community and the artist that he had been previously connected to. Makonnen stated that after coming out, people began trying to discredit his music, talents, and originality, suggesting that peers were ashamed to have supported a gay man. In a 2017 Rolling Stone interview, when asked about Makonnen's coming out, Quavo and Offset suggested the public support he received was because the world is effed up. They implied that his sexuality invalidated his credibility as a trap rapper who previously sang about crime. Although they later apologized, the incident highlighted the industry's hostility. Now, in my opinion, I personally feel like that apology that Migos gave was just a PR stunt that they had to pull. I genuinely think to this day that they are homophobic. Like there's no arguing it. But anyway, Makonnen himself highlighted the hypocrisy of the industry. He said that rappers will happily consume and wear gay designer brands, but refuse to support music made by a gay man. Now, for those of you who need some more background information about Makonnen, when this song dropped, got the club going up on a Tuesday, when he made that catchy song with that phrase in it, he ended up landing himself a deal with OVO Sounds.
Trust me, daddy.
Now, he ended up leaving OVO Sounds a year before he came out the closet. So that was 2016. But OVO Sounds is owned by Drake. And first of all, we know, well, it's not even that we know. We can grasp the idea that Drake is not the most tolerable person when it comes to queerness. Only because of the idea that he consistently makes sexual plays in his songs about how he's a lesbian. But to carry on with that, basically, I personally think that Drake knew Makonnen was queer, allegedly. And I honestly think that him leaving OVO Sounds in 2016 not only had to do with the fact that the label just was putting him on the back burner, but I feel as though he was put on the back burner because he was gay. I genuinely think that there was some behind the scenes stuff going on where somebody knew and he said he was going to come out and they just didn't want to deal with that being attached to their name at that time. Even though he came out after he was signed to Drake's label, people still refuse to acknowledge him when they discuss how the rap music scene was in that 2014 to 2015 music landscape. Despite all of this backlash, Mackinnon continued to make music. He was collaborating with Lil Peep, making, and when I mean collaborating, I'm not sure if they put songs together out, but I think Peep helped him make music. But he expressed that his newfound self-acceptance allowed him to create some of his best work. Now, in later interviews, he mentioned that he was a little sad about the loss of support, but he stood by his decision to be authentic, acting as a trailblazer for the queer artists in the industry. Now, as of 2025, he has largely moved away from the mainstream spotlight. He does things like cooking. He might go on live and on TikTok and talk about the industry. I remember seeing a clip of him talking about how a lot of rappers are queer and just aren't in the closet. Now, in my opinion, coming out the closet is not the worst thing you're going to have to go through as a queer artist. For me, it's the commentary that people make. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when men and other male rappers make sexually assaultive jokes. Like, I'm making up that word so y'all can get what I'm saying, but male rappers and fans will just straight up say, I'm going to sexually assault you. Especially if you're somebody like Jen Carter, who's more on the drill side. That's what they say. And in the DMV, a lot of male rappers, they don't even be beefing with studs. Sometimes they just say, oh, I hate studs, and then they'll say the word or whatever, but I can't say it. But like that, stuff like that be crazy. Like, you're not even beefing with no lesbian. You just woke up like this. Like, that's crazy. But anyway, gay men, they've got to deal with the other end of it. It'd be random women in their comments talking about some, oh, I wish you're not gay. Like, you're so fine, this and that. Or people just straight up talking about how disgusting you are. And on both ends, people always love to tell us how we're living a different lifestyle. But all of these little things that people like to do and say about us, it leads to substance abuse. Like, you can argue me down all you want. Yes, of course, there's other things that people got going on in their life that make them do drugs. But it could also be homophobia. Like, coming from someone who had to experience homophobia, like, people be downplaying it as if it's just something you should shrug off your shoulder. Like, no, I'm genuinely going to be upset about this. But anyway, like, yeah, people like Young M.A, she literally said in an interview, it was a point in her career where she could not travel without a Hennessy bottle, right? And people like, Lil Nas X, he made the entire Montanero album off of shrooms. Young M.A's alcohol addiction got so bad to the point where she had liver issues. She was suffering from jaundice, I believe, and her skin was turning yellow. And her girlfriend posted vulnerable videos of her during her treatment online to spite her. And that also contributed to, the things that she's dealing with. And when it comes to Lil Nas X, now his attorney and him himself and his family are stating that he was not under the influence when this happened. But he recently was caught walking in the street naked. And he was arrested, and charges were filed. It was a big thing. I allege that he was under the influence. And if he wasn't under the influence, then he has to be or had to be in some sort of drug-induced psychosis, which is very common with shroom takers. I just really think that the industry as a whole needs to reanalyze how they treat people. If you're homophobic or whatever, like, why do you have to comment these things? If you see a gay person, why can't you just move on with your day? Why must you spread the hate? And for homophobic rappers, I don't know what it is with you guys, but I hope you know that your career is not going to get any further by trying to prevent a queer rapper from making it. And I really need you to know that. If you're not in the rap community whatsoever, I hope that this was informative for you. Just to give a little background on how the dynamics can be when you are a queer rapper inside of a community like this. But I don't want to discourage anybody. The point of this is to know that no matter what's happening, you still got to try. Don't let what anyone says to you feel like it could discourage you, or don't let it make you feel like you won't get to where you need to go in your career. And don't allow the things that people say to lead you to feel as though you have to lean on a substance or lean on something that you shouldn't in order to cope. If you need help, get the help. And never feel like the homophobia that you experience is minuscule and it doesn't matter. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to tune into Shamik Lamore on all platforms. It's more than music.
Yeah. Run over that stick, I bet I blow, boy. Bad. Want me to buy a go yard?